This year marks the centenary or 100th year of St Lawrence Church being on this site. The current church has been here for 89 years, but before that a tin hut was built dedicated to St Lawrence's Church on the 18th of December 1920. So we're in a special year, and today is an important day because we're celebrating the saint after whom this church on this site has been named. His feast day is Monday, 10th of August, but we're marking this on a Sunday so that we have a chance to think about him together. This gives us an opportunity to think about why the dedication to St Lawrence was chosen and how this relates to our church community today. St Lawrence was originally born in Spain, but travelled to Rome and was made a deacon in the church there. In the Church of England, there are three orders of ministry, that of bishops, priests, and deacons. Whilst the character of each is distinctive, you can't be a priest without first being a deacon, which tends to mean that deacons can be seen as being the lowest order. Deacons' role is to bring the love of Christ to ordinary people through their words and actions. It's the most important outward-looking ministry of the church. So here perhaps is our first clue to why our church is called St Lawrence. Lawrence was rather unusual. In Spain, he happened to meet the man who was about to become Pope, the head of the church in Rome. It is the Pope Sixtus II who in 257 made Lawrence a deacon. Sixtus based him at the city's cathedral as one of 7 deacons. Lawrence was the highest in rank, with special responsibility for the church's treasury, its money, jewels and books, but also for the poor of the city and those in need of support. He had the title Archdeacon of Rome. This wasn't an ordinary time in the church's history. The Roman Empire was still dominant, and Rome was its centre. In 253, Valerian had become the emperor. Valerian was keen on maintaining the religion that came with the empire, and so the worship of Roman gods and the emperor himself. He insisted that all officials in the empire, all leaders in the community, would worship the Roman gods. Those who would not had their wealth taken away, and those who continued to defy his command were executed by beheading. So this was a difficult time for the church. Sixtus refused to worship the Roman gods, and so was beheaded. Next, a judge came after Lawrence and demanded that he present the money and treasures of the church to him. Lawrence asked for 3 days to gather them together. Over those 3 days, he is said to have distributed the financial wealth of the church to the people of the city. As he came back to the judge, he took the people he'd helped with him, explaining that the treasure of the church was those with whom it was friends, the poor, the lame, and the destitute. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Lawrence's death followed not long after, but he'd made a point. The church doesn't focus on wealth. It learns its priorities from the life of Christ, and so is ready to love neighbour as itself. The origins of the church here go back to 1893. There was a different tin hut, this one founded by the wealthy of the area, called the Eastcote Village Institute. It was just off the high road, Eastcote, near Fall Street, with those who have pubs as landmarks just opposite the Black Horse, which existed back then too. It was very much a focal point for the local community, with concerts, fruit and flower shows, and children's activities. At the time, Eastcote was a hamlet of 150 houses, with only 600 people. In addition, 2 local people offered prayers at the Institute on Sunday evenings, amongst them Tom Cross and Kenneth Goshen. Goshen would later become director of the Bank of England. Again, we see a pattern of wealth being used for the welfare of others, and so making friends for the church. The Metropolitan line was extended in 1904, with a stop at Eastcote from 1906. When the area started to grow and develop, the Church of England based in London was on the front foot, buying a local plot of land in 1913 with a view of providing a parish church. So I think there's a consistent approach here. The wealthy gave their money to provide for the people of Eastcote through the Village Institute, and there prayer was offered. The Church of England gave money in 1913 to buy land, so that this work could continue with a dedicated church. Following the end of the First World War in 1918, work was started on a temporary church which was dedicated as St Lawrence's in 1920. Many of the activities that took place there were similar to those in the original Eastcote Village Institute, including rental for entertainments, flower and agricultural shows, a summer fete, harvest festivals, and children's activities. St Lawrence lived at a time when being a Christian was clearly a risky business, but the church then clearly had enough money and generosity of heart to help the poor and those in need. Being a Christian wasn't risky when St Lawrence's church was first built. I think the priorities of that early church community was in line with its patron, to see wealth in terms of people, to make friends of the local community, and to challenge the resources of those who have to care for those in need. I'm struck by how St Lawrence's church grew up very much from the grassroots, from those with wealth who wanted to provide for the people of Eastcote, from those who wanted to pray and so led Sunday prayers, from the continuing vision that made temporary St Lawrence Church a focus for the community, offering a space for entertainments to be hosted, for children's activities, festivals and fetes. Eastcote is undoubtedly a very different community now to what it was then, in terms of people and their immediate concerns. Here and across the UK, Christianity is increasingly not known firsthand, which can lead to misunderstandings as to what a Christian community is for and about, as was true when the first St Lawrence lived. I wonder though if we've maintained the same ethos, the same concerns as its original founders, for the church community to grow up from the grassroots, that through the activities we host and the hospitality we give, to be a natural focus for the local community, we might call the friends of the church. There's a tendency for most church communities to start to look inwards, rather than to those outside, who may never enter the church building. On this feast day, we return to look to St Lawrence. He reminds us to continue to look to share the riches of the church, the resources we have, but also faith, hope and love with those outside it, so we might continue to make friends for God.